Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things. With me today, as always, via the miracle of technology and Skype, we have the J-Man, Jack Manuel. How are you, buddy?
I have a new mic.
You have a new mic. It is exciting times. That's it. Just use that little black thing off to the side. That's not a phallus.
Stop.
It is
It is
Jack's.
We're on YouTube.
They can see that, like, mine's right up in my mouth. Yours is just off to the side, you know. Mine's got a bit of white in there. I've just got to stop. But yeah, Jack is sounding extra crispy. So yeah, should result in a new pod, mate. So happy times, happy podcasting day for the other week. And bought yourself a new mic in celebration. Good on you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Nick Busink, and mate, I have the tissues at hand, not for the reasons that for the actual reasons tissues were made. I have been a very busy boy in my garden today, mowing, leaf blowing. I don't own a mower or a leaf blower. No, I had to borrow them. But given I don't own them, I don't do them that often, and so I'm a very hay fever boy today. Nose is running. It's running more than the Lakers are running away with this series.
Oh,
Hey.
not bad. Not bad.
Not bad. I've done better. I've certainly done worse.
You certainly have.
That is for sure. All right. That just about does it for official banter time, Jackie boy. So you can catch us, as you can see there, on Twitter at the JManJBT or at JBTNick. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and news website where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Make sure you give them a follow on Twitter as well at OTG Basketball. Facebook.com/JustBallThings. Give us a like and a follow there. And hit us up on email, jbtpodcast@gmail.com, and we will read them out on the show or not. It's your own. It's really just up to you. All right, mate. Let's crack on, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's talk some ball. Sorry, my microphone was doing something weird. For those of you who knew the Busey Man Mile Scale, this is a scale graded by JBT that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or just a straight up fact. Jackie boy, where are we starting with this one?
Start with that first little twiddling for me, Nick, and then I'll give you the topic right after. Not the first one, the orange one, mate. The orange one.
Oh, the orange one. Okay, we're still working through. We're still working through. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I got my keyboards right. Hey, this one.
10 seconds left. 1 point game. Who's shooting? You were Kyrie, KD?
Depends on who's hot. I don't see it as anything other than that. Like 1-3 pick and roll, or it's an ISO for either one of us, or it's something great for our team. One thing I've always been comfortable with is, I felt like I was the best option on every team I played for, down the stretch. This is the first time in my career where I could look down and be like, that motherfucker can make that shot too.
All right. Also,
not buying this one, buddy.
Okay.
I'm mad.
All right.
Calm
down.
I'm
Let
upset.
me give you the topic first. Nick got very heated as soon as he saw this right at the top of the dock. We didn't even play the Brooklyn Bits music. Do you want to play that music?
Oh, was this a Brooklyn? Oh, of course it would be a Brooklyn Bits bit. All right, let's play that funky music. And we've made it so that you can actually hear. You can actually hear the woo. Woo, 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 Jackie boy. And I'm glad that you can hear that as well. I hope. Yeah. I hope I set it up all right. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully you people at home could hear that, because it'd be super awkward if you couldn't. So, Jackie boy, Kyrie Irving's comments on Kevin Durant. Sorry, Kyrie Irving comments on Kevin Durant's comments which were
Podcast. That's a podcast. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thrown at LeBron James. Was it shade at LeBron? And I know where I stand on this one.
I know where you do as well, Nick. I stand somewhere closer towards the alternative Twitter fact. We will get to the video where Kyrie Irving clarifies the comments that he made on Kevin Durant's podcast. There's 2 parts to it. For those that haven't listened, please listen to it before you have a full summation of Kyrie Irving is just throwing shade at everyone under the universe. You know, Stephen A. Smith, Kendrick Perkins, all these dumb talking heads. I listened to the podcast, and the context of these comments is basically he's clearly showing love for his guy, KD. That's absolutely true. Kyrie Irving also is guilty of, shall I call it, verbal diarrhea. He just likes to speak. It's verbal. He just chucks it out there. And I respect that because sometimes we get these just pleasantries. It's like, yeah, it's for the team. Yeah, one game at a time. But you don't get that from Kyrie. You don't get that from KD. You get the full honest truth. And I'm glad because it makes for good content and it means that the Brooklyn Bits segment is going to be excellent because it makes Nick very mad and say swear words before we get on the podcast. Thankfully, he didn't say them on air. But I do agree in some respect, and LeBron James was asked about that at a press conference after game 1, and he sort of said he saw them. I don't have any comment about them. Clearly, he's annoyed. LeBron sees all this stuff, but I don't think that this was direct shade at LeBron. It's just like, okay, on the Cavs teams, Nick, get up that video for me where we see maybe one of the best shots in finals history. You know, obviously we have Michael Jordan with some of his shots in his finals appearances, but we also have a pretty good one from my man Kyrie Irving here over Stephen Curry in maybe the best shot that we've ever seen. I'm not going to say it is the best, but it's certainly right up there. And who has the ball in his hands there, Nicholas?
Mr. Irving.
Mr. Irving.
I mean, technically, it's a 3-pointer, but the moment obviously was huge. This was coming straight after LeBron James' block. Not saying that this is referred to as the shot in this series. People know what it is, and it perfectly follows the block. The fact that Curry is guarding this has always pissed me off.
That's what they said in the timeout, and like there's been a lot of discussion about that because it became a topic again because they knew that he was going to switch on to Kyrie. And that's why they gave Kyrie the shot over LeBron. And, Kyrie has we know Kyrie has just a greater jumper and has maybe one of the best jumpers in the league and is a great 3-level scorer. LeBron James has a great jumper too, and he's had amazing clutch moments in his career. He is a clutch player. There's a stat there, Nick, if you want to go to the top tweet that doesn't have any video links to it, but it's a stat from Kirk Goldsberry, and it does evidence that, purely objectively based off the stats, Kyrie is a lesser clutch performer than LeBron James. It's plain and simple. You can see it right there. For those playing along at home, make sure you subscribe on YouTube so you can see what these stats are, because we're not going to tell you. You got to get on YouTube. But it's saying that it's basically plain and simple. Kyrie Irving isn't as great a clutch performer as he thinks he is, but he does have some big clutch moments at the same time. It's similar, I guess, to his idol and mentor, Kobe Bean Bryant. I think that Kobe Bryant gets overrated as a clutch performer, and LeBron James gets underrated as a clutch performer. I think Kevin Durant is probably in the LeBron James camp, and I think LeBron and Kevin Durant had that dagger shot over LeBron in the finals as well. Quite similar in some respects to Stephen Curry's shot. So I don't think it was shade thrown at LeBron, Nick. I personally think it was just some kudos directed towards his new teammate, and he just happened to the interpretation from others was that, F LeBron. He's clearly throwing this at LeBron. So, Nick, before you get in, please don't swear.
I mean, he's making it hard. With these comments, he's making it really hard not to just blast him. He knows what he's saying. Kyrie 100% knows what he's saying. And he knows what's going to happen with these comments. He's a smart dude. Like, the whole flat earth thing obviously speaks to the otherwise, but His justification out of that thing was a little bit, philosophical. But we've discussed.
We'll get to the justification at the end.
But it's frustrating that he can just sit there and, like you said, have verbal diarrhea, which is just incredibly irresponsible. I dislike this take because he knows what he's saying, and I think he made it vocal that he didn't want to be, second fiddle to LeBron forever. He obviously made it very vocal that he wants out of the Cavs. He went to Boston. Obviously, didn't work there. I don't think he's very high on LeBron, which is just insane to me because he won him a championship. And I think he sees that shot in Cleveland. It was just like, yeah, I sealed this series. It's like, no, you fucking didn't. I'm sorry.
Come on,
but there it is.
Mate.
Oh, he made it so hard, and I almost got through the segment without it. It's irresponsible. It's
one thing I will say, Nick.
Bad publicity, good publicity. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the content, and it's great for us for Brooklyn Bits, and I'll be diving deep with Nolan Jensen and Nick Fay on a Brooklyn Buzz episode in a couple of days, where we'll dissect not only this comment a little bit more, but plenty of other comments from the podcast and a heap of other Nets news. So make sure you subscribe to that on iTunes and Spotify. But the last thing I will say about it, Nick, is you do make a good point. He doesn't sound like he's very high on LeBron, but also in his final year in Boston, he did contact LeBron and say, all right, how do I get these guys? I'm sorry. I get it. I was one of those young dudes that didn't, see to your leadership in some respect because, he's still finding his way. And I still think he is sort of finding his way in some respect. But I guess for matter of objectivity, as objective journalist, Nick, he went on Instagram Live. He also did a little bit of a pre-Instagram Live. Let's give the final comments, that final little video there for Nick, to the man himself, Kyrie Irving. And I am right now wearing a number 11 Brooklyn Nets jersey. It is Brook Lopez, so it's the former number 11 for the Brooklyn Nets. But let's get to the number 11 comments, and we'll leave it with Kyrie, the man himself.
Why must it always be brother against brother? Why?
Why, Nick?
If I'm addressing anyone, I'll say their name. Come on, y'all. Don't listen to the false narratives. Let people live their lives. It's just a game. Talk about the art, talk about the sport. You talk openly, you talk freely. But because we live in a click-based society, it becomes something bigger. You don't have to defend it. That's just what media is. It's entertainment. I'm not going to let it put me against anybody anymore at any point, because that's not what it's about. We talk freely, openly, and that's our society. Say how you feel. Don't have to put me against anyone else. It's never been about that. It's about the love. Peace. What?
It's about the love, Jack.
It's about the love,
My
Nick.
God.
It's about the love. Speaking of love, man.
It's verbal diarrhea. I mean, it's just...
Nick, it's about the love, mate, all right? Don't pit another brother against another brother. I don't like saying that coming from a white Caucasian mouth. I'm not going to say that ever again.
I feel like that is just one for... I know we said we'd leave it with it, but like that... To me, that's just like saying something completely outlandish. Like, I don't know. Someone advocating, something horrible. I don't know. Like, he's like, that he was justified in doing whatever he did. And then the person they're talking to gets mad. He's like, why would you think that? What the hell? It's like, whoa, don't get mad. It's like, why you get... It's you say shit to incite a reaction. And then you just start backpedaling and be like, whoa. It's like let's not get all...
But the
feeling.
thing is,
like, well, you shouldn't have said what you said.
But he didn't actually say LeBron James. Everyone made those insinuations, made those...
Yes, because he's been the number one in every other team that he's played with. The only worst, I guess that Brooklyn is whatever. But him saying, I have always felt that I am the number one, I'm the number one option. You're kidding yourself. You are kidding yourself, and we'll leave it at that, Jack. I'm done.
Nick, we'll get to a topic that will probably make you less angry, or maybe it won't. I don't know. You're going to probably get angry throughout this podcast, I think, actually. Nick, a ring would solidify Anthony Davis into the status of Duncan, KG, and Dirk.
Some big names there, Jackie boy.
Very big names. I think we've talked about those on DBS
names
before as well.
Yeah, that will actually, if not, I mean, that is definitely the life for a good DBS. It's an interesting one because, you know, there was a lot of conjecture about, you know, KD and, not KD, AD and his, you know, finals appearances and, you know, whether he'd only ever won one playoff series, and that was, you know, very impressive against the Blazers. But a lot of conjecture about, you know, can he lead a team? And he's not really leading this team, to be fair, but he's certainly a powerhouse on it. I would say yes.
Oh, wow.
People are extremely high on AD. But the only knock is that, you know, there's always LeBron James who would hamper him, if that's the term. Like, it's not solely AD's championship, whereas Dirk's ring was
his
Dirk's ring. You're not looking at freaking JJ Barea on that team or fucking
Tyson Chandler.
You know, like, you're not looking at those types of players and be like, yeah, I mean, they helped out. Sure, they helped out, but, you know, it was essentially Dirk and 4 role players.
Yeah.
It felt like, anyway. And some nice highlights from Dirk there. The KG and you know, that's quite I think that's quite a level above as well. Like, to say that these are all guys in the same sort of echelon, I would also argue, but I mean, this is AD's super young, and this is the first title for the Lakers. He said he's willing to go, you know, 9 more with LeBron James. LeBron James been playing when he's 50 years old.
In the ass, big time. Not 1, not 2. Oh man, just sometimes you just gotta. I mean, we just spoke about Kyrie Irving. Sometimes you have to shut up.
That's right. But this is certainly a step in the right direction. I think it does. I think people will be putting him in this conversation. Like, it's the same thing with, you know, LeBron James and the GOAT. If LeBron James were to retire tomorrow, a lot of people who are saying he is the greatest of all time probably won't, because, you know, they're estimating and they're foreplanning what he's going to do with his future career. And I think a lot of people are going to do the same thing with AD. Does it put him in the conversation right now? It puts him in the conversation right now, for sure. But if he were to retire after this championship, he wouldn't be regarded as highly as those players. Yeah. And I think that's what it is. It's like, it's the retirement tomorrow. But if you ask people, if they said, is he as great as these players? I think they would say yes, because of what his future holds. It's
a good point. I think that, you know, purely based off this ring, no, of course not, because the ring that Dirk won was against one of the most stacked teams in history, in one of the big upsets in finals history. Tim Duncan is one of the best players of all time, top 5, top 10, quite easily. KG is one of the...
Was it great play, Jack, or was it a capitulation by the Heat? Like this?
Yes, okay. I think it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. It's not just one thing or the other. And Tim Duncan is one of the most winningest superstars and underrated superstars that we have had ever. And obviously KG as well. You know, what he did in Minnesota, and then obviously the success that he had in Boston as well, getting that ring with Doc Rivers, who we'll get to a little bit later in the episode. You know, obviously, I personally don't think yet. You know, obviously his resume is amazing. A 7-time NBA All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, 4-time All-Defense. He's on an insane postseason run in terms of the numbers. If you look at them, you know, something like 29, 11, 4, 57% from the field, 40% from 3, 77% free throws. It's crazy. But Duncan led the team. KG semi-led the team. So maybe he's in a KG sort of realm of thinking in terms of right now. And Dirk led a team. Anthony, maybe, like you sort of said, when we're foreshadowing ahead, we might be able to go, okay, Anthony Davis is in that conversation. And funnily enough, on a podcast, I think last year with Corey and Nick, we were talking about Anthony Davis, and I think Corey himself said that, he can be one of the best power forwards in the history of the game. And I was like, whoa, but then you think about it, and now this ring is the impetus for where he can go further. And obviously, maybe not 9 more, but certainly a couple more should be on the way. And he's leading this team right now. He's the Finals MVP in my eyes, even if, LeBron says otherwise and all the other LeBron stands at ESPN and the voters would say otherwise. I think that he's the Finals MVP right now. And Markieff Morris, I was going to put this in the pod. I don't think I did. In saying that, I didn't. But I was going to put in the pod Markieff Morris saying that we have the best player in the league right now. And he was talking about Anthony Davis and not LeBron James. So I think that AD is slowly taking over. And I think that the duo that they have is obviously perfect. They just make each other. It's one of the best superstar duos in a very, very long time. And clearly the best in the league right now. But, to have him in rarefied air of Tim Duncan, I'm not doing that yet. KG, one of the best defensive players ever. Anthony Davis is on his way there. And Dirk, who revolutionized the game at his position. I think AD is a product of all 3 of these guys, if you want to put it in some sort of context, because he has the defensive acumen of a Duncan and a KG. He has the understated brilliance of a Duncan. He has the forcefulness and impact of a KG, and he has the offensive mastery that a Dirk does. So, without these 3, there is no Anthony Davis. So, I think that he is the next coming in the power forward class, and in a position that is probably quite underrated and almost sort of gone dead in a lot of ways. So, I think that it wouldn't necessarily solidify it. I think solidify is the key word here. But it would get him on the right track.
But do you agree that, we throw these 3 names out there, and I don't think it's fair to players like Duncan to put Dirk in the same breath. And, I noticed a bit of a reaction from you when I said, these 3 players are not equal. So to compare, you can compare them to maybe Dirk, you can compare them maybe to KG, but I don't think you can compare him to Duncan. He's still a long way from that point. Obviously, KG. All of these players, their careers have played out.
Yeah.
And by the time we finish Anthony Davis's career, who knows? Maybe AD's the GOAT.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe. I don't know.
We live in a clickbait society. As you said, Nicholas, we live in a clickbait society.
Yeah, that's one way to get your head blown off by a whole lot of people.
To see behind the scenes, I already made a little bit of a thumbnail for this episode, and it was going to be like, AD is better than Dirk. But now I might have to change it to AD is the GOAT.
AD is the GOAT. I had a question mark.
Let's put it. I'll have to edit that one and before I upload this one to YouTube. Obviously, you guys are watching now, but that's how the sauce is made, as they say. Nick, we will move on and we'll get to Doc Rivers, who is now the new Philadelphia 76ers head coach. And I'll put this to you, and this is via Kevin Pelton of ESPN. Firing Doc Rivers is the riskiest coach change in NBA history and makes no sense. Now, Nick, this video I didn't want you to play just yet. Give me those little highlights, the YouTube one first. The last one is something that I just wanted to show everyone because it's why we need Doc Rivers in the league. So give me a bit of background stuff from ESPN and his hiring. But as this is playing, Nick, give me your opinion. It's been a while now. He got the job in like 2 days, and it's been since our last podcast. What are your thoughts, I guess, on the Clippers side of things in terms of Steve Ballmer and the firing? And what are your thoughts on his future fit with our guy Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, I think it was all taken a bit... It was weird. I mean, I remember waking up to the news that Doc was gone, and I was sort of... It's that sort of surprise, but you sort of get it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, wow, you actually... Because you could talk yourself into the reasons why, but you'd have to talk yourself into it. This is the thing. So it was sort of a shock to see it actually announced on your phone. But then you're sort of mulling it over and you're like, oh, were they going to get... are they going to get much worse with Rivers? There was obviously a rift with some sort of... some rift between player and coach.
Yeah.
was there a lack of communication? We've spoken about this for ages with the whole Nash hiring
and Kenny Atkinson
communication
as well.
and massive to reach your players. And I mentioned it with Malone, and obviously he has tremendous respect for the with the Nuggets players, and so it's a bold move. I guess time will tell if it's the wrong move from the Clippers perspective. From the 76ers side, the last report we heard before this decision was made was that Mike D'Antoni
was on our last episode.
Would have to. I know, but the report was that he would have to severely mess up the next interview to lose this job. And I don't know whether it was because obviously Doc Rivers wasn't on the market when D'Antoni went and did his interviews.
Yeah,
but to shift so quickly, to pivot when it was all but confirmed that D'Antoni was going to be your head coach, it's strange. But there's been a lot of comparisons, I guess, between what's it called, the Clippers and this Sixers team.
Yeah.
And so they're getting a lot of, Blake Griffin vibes from Ben Simmons. It's like how he can shift his game. Blake obviously a more willing shooter than Simmons, but not tremendous. Obviously sort of drifting in that mid-range and only really started getting into the three-point shot later. A lot of Lob City could be happening between Embiid and, there's been a lot of comparisons, and I can see that, which is sort of why I don't hate the hiring. But then on the other token, what the Sixers need right now is a strong head coach with strong leadership, with strong communication, which is exactly the reason why the Clippers let Doc Rivers go. And it's the Clippers' lack of playoff success should be alarm bells for the Sixers, because you've just hired a coach with little playoff success.
Well, he's won a championship, Nick.
With the Clippers.
Okay.
With the Clippers.
Yeah. Okay.
I get what you're saying. Because that team, that Boston team, had tremendous personalities on it. Amazing leadership on that team. The Sixers are lacking that so severely, and who knows what happens with Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons had been playing, maybe he can instill some leadership. I'm not sure he doesn't.
Embiid's a dad now, Nick. Remember?
Maybe he matures a little bit, but I am skeptical with this hiring. Risky. I think this is a Wikipedia fact. This is very risky from both parties to let the Clippers go. Obviously, massive risk. Doc is a great coach, and there's a good chance that you get worse with your next hiring. And then, again, risky from the 76ers perspective because of all the playoff woes, I guess, that Doc has encountered, and the lack of, the problems that the 76ers still have still prevail, even with the Doc Rivers hiring. And that's what's concerning. Maybe Tobias Harris turns into a player under Doc. I mean,
well, his best form was under Doc when he was playing for them.
I'm not buying into that. I heard that take. I'm not buying into that one. I think Tobias is done. But yeah, I'm hoping nothing but success for the 76ers, because I want Benny Boy to have a championship, and if him and Embiid can get it together, it'll prove so many naysayers wrong. And yeah, I think it'll be just a good time for the 76ers if they can get that done. But risky.
It is risky. It certainly is. I think that I'll attack it from both sides, like you did. From the Clippers side of things, like you said, are you going to get a better coach? Clearly, Steve Ballmer has all the money in the world that he's just like, hey, Pop, you want $40 million to coach
everything?
Just like it's like I don't know if you want to do, if you can right now. I'm throwing you on the spot where there's a money fight between Smithers and Mr. Burns.
Let me try. Let me see. You do your thing. You do your thing. I'll set up
plenty to talk about.
I'll set up the memes.
It's clear because Steve Ballmer wants a Nick Nurse. He wants a Ty Lue Cleveland. He wants a guy that's going to come in and elevate this team into bona fide championship status. The Clippers were championship contenders, and they would have been next season with Doc Rivers. It's the differing philosophy and the differing. Here we go.
Oh, we keep going, mate. I mean,
you do fine work, Nicholas. I will say you do fine work, sir. But in saying that, I don't know. Is Ty Lue going to be that coach? Yeah, maybe.
I feel like Ty Lue has just been like, he's just been ditched in every corner. I feel like he's just like, Ty Lue's up for the running of every job, and then doesn't get any of them. And, you know, there's a finite amount of jobs in this league. But, yeah, there it is, right at the end. That's Steve Ballmer right there.
That's Steve Ballmer probably throwing it at Ty Lue or Nick Nurse or Greg Popovich or Coach K, whoever it might be. But I agree, Nick. You know, it's risky because... But I also do think that, you know, we didn't see any of the players like Kawhi, PG, Montrez, Lou Will come out and say, thanks for everything, Doc. Success going forward. And so,
that is, I think that speaks to the personality. I think Kawhi's not really much to be outspoken, but like, you're not getting anything from, you know, Pat Bev, you know, Paul George. Like, it seemed that the Clippers locker room just did not have the respect of Doc, and if that happens at Philadelphia, far out. They're just. Because they didn't have the respect of Coach Brown. There's no way.
Well, I mean, that makes sense because Brett Brown grew with that franchise. Ben Simmons knew nothing better. Joel Embiid knew nothing better. Now they have a guy who's won a championship, who's had playoff success, and it's just like, okay, I automatically command respect. And I think Doc Rivers commands respect even with all of the, the X's on him and his resume on and off the court. Off the court, I think he's a tremendous figure, and I'm so happy that he's in this league still because we need the leadership and the guidance of a Doc Rivers. He is a tremendous figure for African American coaches and African American men in general. So I'm fascinated, Nick, because I think he can, like you mentioned, bring something out of Embiid. He can command that respect. I think he can bring something out of Ben Simmons. I think he can be creative. If he shows he's a great X's and O's coach, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. So I'm excited. I think I'm not necessarily as strong on it. I think that from the Clippers side of things, I do think it's incredibly risky. I think it's riskier for them than it is for the Sixers. The Sixers have the best coach on the market right now. They landed the best coach on the market. You know, him, D'Antoni, Ty Lue. I think Doc Rivers is the most accomplished. I think you probably could have. You can make arguments for either three of those guys quite clearly. I know you might have a differing opinion in that, but did you want to give that before we end with a quote that I think everyone needs to see again from Doc Rivers?
Well, I mean, I would have gone with Lou. Just given the personalities at Philadelphia, I think you need more of a guy that's gonna feel feelings, you know, like who's gonna get in touch with these guys, and I think Lou can definitely do that better than a D'Antoni or a Rivers personally, just from what we've seen. Obviously, he made shit work with the Cavs. LeBron helps. For sure.
Kyrie helps more, though, Nick. Kyrie helps more.
But you need but you need a special type of coach to almost, just to navigate the waters, because these players are so vocal and so, you just need someone to smooth over either transitions with new players, make them feel welcome, like build this community almost, rather than drop 1,000,001 plays and be like, this is it's less of a system, because your players are so great that systems can fall around their greatness, whereas you need them to be playing at their absolute peak. And I think that's been the problem with the Sixers. They just haven't had Embiid, that peak Embiid that we've seen. And a coach to unlock that, I think, doesn't need to be an X's and O's coach. It needs to be a player coach.
I personally think Doc Rivers is the man that can do that. I think more than probably any other when it comes to Embiid.
Wait and see. I hope so.
We will see. We will see. And Nick, before we do move on to the next topic, I think it's incredibly important. that we revisit this sensational speech and sensational response from Doc Rivers I just want him to... I'll let him do the talking. I've watched this video a lot. It still gets to me. And for those that haven't seen it, listen up.
They're spewing this fear, right? Like, all you hear is Donald Trump and all of them talking about fear. We're the ones getting killed. We're the ones getting shot. We're the ones that we're denied to live in certain communities. We've been hung. We've been shot. And all you do is keep hearing about fear. It's amazing to me why we keep loving this country and this country does not love us back. And it's really so sad. Like, I should just be a coach. And it's so often reminded of my color. You know, it's just really sad. We got to do better. But we got to demand better. Like, we got, you know, it's funny. We protest and they send riot guards, right? They send people in riot outfits. They go to Michigan with guns and they're spitting on cops and nothing happens. The training has to change in the police force. The unions have to be taken down in the police force. My dad was a cop. I believe in good cops. We're not trying to defund the police and take all their money away. We're trying to get them to protect us, just like they protect everybody else. I didn't want to talk about it before the game because it's so hard. Like, just keep watching it. That video, if you watch that video, you don't need to be black to be outraged. You need to be American and outraged. And how dare the Republicans talk about fear? We're the ones that need to be scared. We're the ones having to talk to every black child. What white father has to give his son a talk about being careful if you get pulled over? It's just ridiculous. And it just keeps going. There's no charges. Breonna Taylor, no charges, nothing. All we're asking is you live up to the Constitution. That's all we're asking for everybody, for everyone. Thank you.
Good stuff there from Rivers. Obviously, that came out a while ago. The quote that sort of stung, and I think this is the marquee quote that came out of it, was that keep loving this country that doesn't love us back. And it's good. It's good. Hopefully he can speak to his players with that much vigor and get the most out of all of the 76ers squad, and all power to them. The basketball world, the world in general, needs Doc Rivers seen and visible in whatever capacity. So I'm grateful that he is in Philadelphia so he can continue to use his important and his expertise to speak on not only basketball matters, but on matters that are beyond that and more important. So we love Doc. He's an absolute goddamn legend. But Nick, we've got to change tact. And there's been some rumors about Victor Oladipo. Now, Nick, I put to you, Victor Oladipo isn't worth trading for. So obviously this is on the shoe of the other teams.
Correct. So if the Nets have been one of the rumored trades. So if I'm this team, it says Nets on my jersey for those who are listening to the audio podcast form. For those who are on my team, if I'm Sean Marks, am I trading for him, Nick? What's going on? What about the Wizards, mate? Maybe give him a bit of a Bradley Beal action, some Thomas Bryant?
I mean, apologies there, people. Had some technical difficulty, but we'll get right back on track here. I know a lot of you are going to be like, "Oh, what's happening? Everything's fine. Do not adjust your dial. So we were talking about Victor Oladipo, and the part that pointed out Victor Oladipo is not worth trading for. Jackie boy, where are you at on this one?
Nick, I'm somewhere towards probably a Twitter fact, because while I believe in the utmost of the highest of highs of Victor Oladipo's career, all NBA talent, all-star, top 20 player, but at the same time, I haven't seen that lately. The injuries do worry me, and obviously the status he sort of went on a Instagram live with Fat Joe of all people, and sort of said that he's like a pacer for life, blah 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 blah. But I think that, and there's also conflicting reports in the Athletic saying that he wants to get traded. But in terms of other teams trading for him, I wouldn't be giving up. I wouldn't be throwing all my chips in. I've been making a decent enough bet. I'd throw a couple in, but I would want to save. I wouldn't want to throw the farm at it, because I just think that the injury status, can he get back to that All-NBA form? He's not over the hill in terms of his age, mid to late 20s, I think 28 or something. Yeah, so in that sort of respect, yeah, it's not all over, but I think that there is, I'm worrisome if I'm another franchise, and what package am I giving up for Victor Oladipo? What Victor Oladipo am I getting? Am I getting the bubble and pre-bubble where he was, finding his footing? Am I getting the top 20 talent All-NBA level player, or am I getting somewhere in between? That's the decision that's going to have to be made by an opposing franchise front office. It's an interesting one, this one, because Depot's sort of skill set lies fairly heavily on athleticism. He can pass, but doesn't light up the assist numbers, obviously. But sort of, you saw a bit of interplay between him and Sabonis. I think they super complement each other, and it could be, without Sabonis, does Depot take a drop off? Without Depot, does Sabonis take a drop off? Both all stars. It's certainly interesting, and I mentioned the physicality because the injury could potentially take a big toll on Oladipo, but for me, he's impressed me enough at the Pacers. Obviously, lottery pick coming into Orlando, sort of went second string in OKC, and then got traded. And then no one saw that happening. Saw the trade to the Pacers, and then became the guy at the Pacers, and that just doesn't happen. G'day, Deborah. Deborah walking behind you. She's set up for yoga.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry, we've run a little long. Hello, Deborah. What are you doing, mate? Go away. Yeah, so I think he can get back to where he was. A big thing is his mentality, because you can't just go, bit of a lackluster start to the NBA, given he's a lottery pick, to a second string, to by far and away better than anything we had ever expected from him. And a lot of that has got to do with his mentality. And it could be system. It could be just, Nate McMillan bringing out the best in him. And I was a massive fan of Nate McMillan because of that. I have faith in the young man. I say young man, 28, still young.
Young to me.
Yeah, that's right. I have faith that I think he's worth some first rounders. I think he's worth a good trade package, and he instills a lot of hope in small markets as well, like what he did with the Pacers. And I think if you're a small market, you hope that he can bring a little bit of that. A few shirt sales, he's a vibrant character. I would love to have him on my team if we didn't already
he
have.
Sings well.
He sings well, yeah, that's right. I think he's an asset. I definitely think he's an asset to the team, and I would definitely take a gamble on him. So I'm higher on this one than you.
Fair enough. We'll finish with this one, Nick. And I guess it kind of relates to the topic we were talking about in terms of, Indiana and, other small markets. John Hollinger, big market teams operate in a completely different reality than small market teams. What are your thoughts on this one, mate?
It's fact. This is a fact. Small market teams compared to big market teams. Big market teams are in their own little bubble. Obviously, there's not many of them, but they certainly have a lot more pull. You've got that massive. You've got the Sun of Miami. You've You've got the massive media attention, not Miami, in Los Angeles. You've got massive media attention in these places. You're in the spotlight. A player like Kyle Kuzma is a prime example of what a big market can do to you. A very average player put in the spotlight, and just everyone loves him. Caruso. I mean, I love Caruso. If Caruso was doing that with any other team in the league, no one would give a shit. But it's Caruso. He's an unlikely NBA-looking man. It's great. But it's and they can operate in that, and they know that, so they don't have to. They don't have to. For example, the draft. They don't have to draft as well as small market clubs because they have that appeal that they let everyone else draft, and then we'll just take them. In free agency, in trade packages, in whatever. Because history has shown that the Knicks and the Lakers have not drafted well in recent history, especially the Knicks.
Frank Ntilikina and Kevin Knox, your Rookie of the Year, Nick.
Shut up. Still, the jury's still out on RJ Barrett as well. He's a player. I mean, we'll see what happens, but it's easy for us to, and I was definitely on board with the big market is a bit overblown when I started watching the NBA, because every team is the same for us. Like if you're in our situation, the NBA doesn't get covered really in Australia, and so you're probably watching a lot of the games yourself. And so you can choose to watch whatever game. You're not stuck with ESPN. You're not stuck with like what's on the televised broadcast games, because the games are on weird times for us anyway. So it's so easy to just support someone else because you're watching it on League Pass anyway. So it's easy for people abroad to sort of downplay the big market. But obviously this is the National Basketball League Association in America. And it is a big deal, and it's huge. It's the media attention. It like I said, players like Kyle Kuzma who want that spotlight. Players coming through college who have been the best player in whatever team that they've played on high school through middle school. They want to be the best, and so the media attention can definitely help with that. And that's a huge draw, and they can operate like that. They don't have to be very shrewd in the draft. They don't have to be very shrewd with how they trade. They need to, like smaller markets need to have long-term plans, really. They need to forecast well into the future, whereas big market teams can just, me want good player, have money.
It's the money thing we talked about earlier.
It's the finger thing. It's the taxes. Yeah, it's money ultimately, and if the salary cap helps in that respect, but coaches aren't on salary caps, front offices aren't on salary caps. You can't salary cap the sun, so you're gonna have the sunshine. Like you're gonna just be it's just a nicer place to live in New York and LA, and that's a big draw as well. They want these people, the players have families, and I've spoken forever. You give me your takes on this one, mate.
No, I think you've totally summed it up perfectly in terms of the amount of tools that are available to a small market team and the amount of planning that needs to go in. It's hard. They can't make as many mistakes. Yep, I've got my mother dancing apparently, so I will be finishing this podcast very, very soon. But yes, it's just a lot harder for smaller markets. They can't make as many mistakes, or they are hamstringed for years and years. The Lakers, you can just fall into a LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Two GOATs
that's right.
On one team, according to Nick Busing. And that is the best way to finish the pod.
Lovely stuff, Jackie boy. All right. Thank you for everyone that has tuned in to us on YouTube, on the podcast, wherever it is. That just about does it for another week. So we'd just like to say thank you so much for tuning in. You can catch us, obviously, on the YouTube page at OTG Basketball. Give us subscribe, like, comment, all of that good stuff. Hit that notification bell so you can know when we go up. We'll generally keep it same time, generally every Sunday, or Sunday Australian time. So Saturday, I guess, for Americans. Yeah. Yeah, the time zones are stuffing me up. Trust me. You can catch us as always on the podcast channels: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. We will be there. Obviously, we play a lot of videos during these outlets, so catch us on YouTube if you can. Remember, it's you guys that make the show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week,
keep balling, superstars.